Here we go. The blessings of disability and barrenness. First of all, I want to say that just if we take only disabilities, different kind of disabilities, right? People who are lame, people who are crippled, people who are having syndrome sicknesses or things like that, or people who are blind or deaf, people who have physical disabilities. You know, sometimes we think that there are not so many in our society, and we think, they are marginal kind of people, that we think they are marginalized people, and people look down at them. They go through a lot of things, and we think it's a curse actually to be disabled or to be crippled or to suffer from one kind of defect or the other. And most people think it's a negative thing, and some people actually have gone to the place of thinking that is God punishing them, or it's God must have something against them, why God allowed that to happen. But if the worst case is some people don't even mind having their own disabilities, but some people are really concerned about, and what they never think they should have, or what they never would imagine themselves having, is that they don't even want to imagine themselves having a child. People don't want to give birth to a child with disabilities. So it's one thing for you yourself to be disabled, but to give birth to a child that has having disabilities, that's one thing people don't want. Everybody is dreaming of giving birth to healthy children. Everybody is dreaming of giving birth to wholesome children, and if they don't have an healthy child, they begin to pray, they do sacrifice, they give offering, they beg God, they go to men of God, they parade men and women of God, miracle workers, prophets, to kind of change their destiny for them. But you'll be surprised that the disabled people are not as marginalized as you're thinking. We have disabled people all around us, and disabled people are everywhere. Let me tell you the statistics. The statistics says about 10% of people in our world today are disabled, or they have one type of disability or the other. So 10% of the whole population of the world is not small. Just to put it in perspective, we Christians, we who call ourselves Christian, Pentecostal Christians or charismatic Christians, Christians who speak in tongues, Christians who speak in tongues, we are about 700 million people in the world. That's like 10% of the world is born again, tongue-speaking Christians. 10% of the world. That same number, 700 million people, is how many disabled people we have. How many disabled people we have in this world. So at the end of the day, you will see that there are not so few. Can you imagine when we go to churches, we see all these. We go to churches, we see all these thousands of people, and we think we are so many. That is how disabled people also could be gathered, and they will be just as many. So can you imagine, like, you see the crusades of Benny Hinn or Reinhard Bonnke, and you see millions. That's just the way you could as well see disabled people also. So the same number of people, 700 million people who are disabled, or who are, the same number of people as Pentecostal tongue-speaking believers in the world. So they are not as few as we all want to think. But before I begin to talk about the blessings that people who are disabled have, I want to let you know that the stereotype about disability is terrible. And I would like to start with myself and make a confession that I'm not very proud of. And I think everybody might have had a thought like that one time or the other in their lives. And you ask yourself the same question, and you can challenge yourself, and you can answer this question for yourself. Have you ever, because I think this is just natural, that when you get married and you are about to begin to have children, there are two questions you want to ask yourself. Will it be possible for you to have children? Or will you have a challenge in having children? because you know other people, there are people who have challenges in in having children. Some people they don't have the ability to give birth to children. I think it's natural for everybody to even have that thought. Maybe you don't accept the thought, maybe you refuse the thought, but I think it's natural to consider it. Okay, what about if we don't have a child? What will happen if it doesn't work out? So that's one fear everybody had and everybody could have. Maybe not everybody, but most people could have. But I thought about it. But in my own case, let me start with that one. Let me start with barrenness. The thought came to me as well, but in my case, I had to think about it, because even though I never thought that could happen to me, because I was thinking, I was this believer, so zealous, and I was brought up studying and reading the books of Kenneth Hagin. And so I was all in this faith teaching and a lot of things about faith. So I didn't even fear that. I knew that even if anything was going to come up, that I was going to surmount it, that I was going to overcome it, that I was never going to have any problem in that regard. But, like people say, life happens. And as a result, because we never thought that we were going to have any challenge in that area, we were not planning to have a child for the first 3 years with my wife. So the first 3 years, we were doing prevention, so we did not have any child. But the fourth year, when we wanted to check out before we begin to be pregnant, and that was when my wife went for a checkup. And when she went to the doctor for that checkup, the doctors came back and said that she had two major problems. I don't think I'll be going into the details of the diagnosis, but there were two major diagnoses that basically will render her, infertile. Or, these diagnoses, they are so bad that no doctor will guarantee that she will ever have a child. But in my case, I felt, even as a man, I felt discouraged a little bit, not so happy, but I was defiant. I was saying, I don't really care. But my own anger was not towards my wife or towards myself or towards anything. It was more towards Satan, towards the devil. So I told myself, I went to God and I did my solitude, 7 days of solitude with God. I resolved the problem with God. And I told God, and I told my wife as well, that I told Satan, that I told God that I don't care if I'm going to have a child or I'm not going to have a child, but I will let you know that even if I don't have a child, I will turn it to good, and I will make sure that it becomes a blessing, because if I don't have a child, then I will, all the time that I would have spent on that child, I will spend it, and I will make sure that my wife also spends, that it will going to become double trouble for Satan. So, and I told Satan the same thing. Satan, if you are going to disturb us, you better let us have children now, because then you could have some, we have some distractions, from. But if we don't have children, that all that time that we are supposed to be spending on children or all that, or at home, it's not just going to be me who's going to double his effort. I'm going to be beating you hard from everywhere. But even my wife I'm going to train her. She's going to become a preacher. She was not planning to become a preacher later. We are going to be whipping you from every angle. Satan, you are going to regret it that we don't allow us to have children. We are going to whip you from every angle. We are going to whip you so bad that you are going to just say, okay, let them have children right now. Let them just have it so that we'll have less problem with them. And that was my own attitude. But when I saw the way my wife was so discouraged, with that diagnosis, and she was so discouraged, she was so broken. I mean, she had always been a happy lady, but here I would be coming from the office and come home in the evening, and I would see that my wife is not smiling, she's not happy. She's always, her thoughts are always gone. She's always into herself. I discovered that I have a bigger problem than not having children here. Because before I had a wife, I had a life. Now I don't have life anymore because of the attitude of my response of my wife. So I knew that, this problem of children, we have to resolve it. Otherwise, I will have a wife but no life anymore. I used to have a married life, but now there will be no life. I mean, nobody to talk to because she was always moody. I couldn't see the smile of my wife anymore, and it's because of that smile that I married her in the first place. I mean, one of the reasons why I married her, and one of the little joys that we have in the family was not going to be there. No more smile, no more laughter, no more joke, no more just somebody who is very depressed in my own house. So when I saw that, and that kind of gave me an impression of what barren couple go through. And that's why that's why I'm coming to you with this message from the side of understanding, not from the point of not from the side or from the point of condemnation or judgment or holier than thou, but from the point of understanding, so that you know that we've been there. So I just told my wife, because rather than sitting down there and seeing her in that kind of situation, I went back to God in prayers. So I went back to do another 7 days of solitude with God, and I told my wife before I went, I said, Princess, you know what? Satan just doesn't know who you married. And Satan is going to find out very fast who is your husband. And, I'm going to stay in the presence of God, and I'm going to resolve this problem myself. So I told her, Princess, I don't want to see you so moody anymore. I said, I even prohibit you, not just to worry about that problem anymore, but I prohibit you from even praying about this problem. I even ban you. I said, you should never even pray about it again. And she said, why? I said, because I want to take responsibility for it. I want you to know that you are married and you have a husband. And the kind of husband you have is taking that. I said, I'm telling God, I'm telling you now, that you should not pray. You should not even think about it. I take it upon myself. It's my responsibility. It's my problem. Either I'm a man of God or I'm not a man of God. Now, this is the situation for you to know who you marry. And this is the situation for you to find out if you are married to a man of God or not. So I said, I even relieve you from that problem altogether, even from worrying or praying about it. Forget about it. I am resolving it. It's my problem. Even if we are not going to have children, I'm going to come back with some compensation or with some answers that will forever put it to rest. So because I didn't want her to be marrying, to be worrying about it. So I needed to really assure her. So I went to the Lord in prayers and, spent time with God and got revelations. I got the answer. I got response, and, God was so faithful, and the rest is story. But that is about when it comes to barrenness. Now, let me tell you another story about disability. Another question that comes to people's mind when it comes to disability, when they are marrying and when they are about to give birth to children, is that, of course, some people never really think about it. I also never really thought about it seriously, because sometimes we Christians kind of think that we are immune from troubles, or we are immune from tragedies, or we are immune from catastrophes or from ill-fortune incidents or unfortunate incidents. So I think I will agree that many Christians might not actually have considered that they actually could give birth to a disabled child because of the kind of preachings we've been preaching. We've been hearing, that there will never be a barren in your land, that God will supply your food, your bread on day and days, nobody will be sick in your camp, all kind of promises. So we all kind of believe that, it is now, since we are serving God and since we are following the Lord, that things should never go wrong. and that things like that should never happen to us. That we should never have to deal with a situation like, disabled child or autism or Down sickness or any kind of physically challenging situation. So I never thought, I think, that we could give birth to a disabled child until we had a very serious brush with it. My wife, we had 2 children at this time, and then we were expecting our third child. And my wife, we decided to give birth to this child in America. So my wife traveled to America. We traveled together, so I think, and she was left there, and then I think she traveled without me. Yeah, I think she traveled without me. So she went to America to give birth to her child. And while she was there, she had to do a series of tests, before the delivery. Then that was when the scan started showing that our third child that we were expecting had a cyst, a growth, a lump, a cyst in her brain, and that my wife had been advised to stop the pregnancy, even though she was already 7 months. The pregnancy was 7 months or 8 months, and they gave her a different option. And we went to another test. Then the other test said, okay, one thing they could do is to do operation in her stomach while she was still pregnant, to try to operate the baby. But they couldn't guarantee any result. And, the most positive, optimistic prognosis was that maybe she should give birth, but the very day or the next day after she's been delivered, the child has been delivered, that she had to be operated on. And despite all this, there will be no guarantee that that child will ever be normal. So, the best option most of them were proposing was termination. Because this child would never walk. That she will be vegetable. She will be like a vegetable. And that the child was going to just be a burden for us for the rest of our lives. She will never walk. She will never speak. She will just, and they don't know how long she was going to live. They don't know how long she was going to live. So I presume that a lot of people get this kind of report on a daily basis. If 10% of the world is having disabilities, one kind of disability or the other, and parents are giving birth to disabled children, it could only be expected that these kind of things are being reported on a daily basis somewhere in the world. And so that was when I had to really seriously think of what do I offer to do? What kind of thing do I think we could do? And again, I want to say that I'm not proud of this part of this story. I mentioned the fact that I was not proud of what I'm going to say, especially this part of this story. This was like 13 years ago, by the way. But what I'm not proud of is that I'm actually ashamed of right now, because I didn't know what I know right now. And also because I was coming from a background of charismatic Christianity, faith, word of faith, believe God, faith, miracle, whereby my attitude was that of rejection of anything bad. Because the concept was like nothing bad could be coming from God. And that if it's bad, it's not God. And that I don't accept it. I refuse it. I don't accept it. So, what I'm really ashamed of now is that one of the options that I put on the table for myself is maybe just dropping the child. We didn't consider the option of abortion or termination. We didn't because we were so strong in faith and we were pastors, and this was Pastor Sunday. I was already famous already in the world, and so this was Pastor Sunday, and so we're not going to do that. But we were thinking, what about if that child would be incapacitated to that level that, what I was, a kind of also selfishness, I think, and I would not understand it as wickedness that time, but now it's just a lack of understanding. But one of the options was we could leave the child in the hospital. And she will be picked up by... I didn't discuss this with my wife. That's what just things coming in my mind. But we were given these options. So one of the options is that the child could be left in the hospital and, somebody will take care of it. Or she could be given to the orphanage, or there are some orphanages or homes, children homes for the handicapped children, for the disabled children. So the government will be taking care of them. And because we are thinking, and that's why I said this is so shameful what I'm about to say. And the fact is that we were thinking that since we were ministers, I was a pastor and she was a pastor, we were ministering to people, and that if we take on, growing such a child by ourselves, that it was going to distract us it was going to be a big distraction from ministry, from ministering to people, from helping people. So we are looking at it as a satanic plan to distract us from serving God. But it's a shame, really, to have thought like that. It's a shame. It's a shame. It's a shame. And I'm very sorry for that. I'm really very sorry. I repent and I apologize before God and before men. And very, very ashamed and but I only considered it, but I didn't accept it. I didn't even tell my wife about it because I didn't want to. I was this man, so I wanted to give her covering. I didn't even want her to consider that, even though I was rolling it in my head. And so I was being strong for her. And I was telling her, no, we are going to stand. This child is going to be normal. This child is going to be okay. So even when she was considering, should we do termination, or should we do this, or should we do that, I had to tell her that no, we are not going to do any of the things that the doctors is talking about. We are going to, give birth to this child, and I guarantee you that this child is going to be healthy. So again, I went to the Lord in prayers, and we had a session of prayer. Myself, my wife were agreeing, and I believe I settled it with God. So I flew out from here to meet her, and so I began to pray. I was there at the birth of the child, and prophesied and prayed and all that. Anyway, to cut a long story short, they saw a few hours before she was born, they still saw the cyst and the growth and the lump in the brain. But, God was so good that, a miracle happened, and that child is doing well right now. But what am I saying? So many thoughts could come to the mind of people who are having a challenge with disability of their loved ones, of their children, of their babies, and or even struggling with barrenness. So what I'm saying is that, a lot of things could be coming to the mind of people. And don't be in a hurry to judge people, unless, especially if you have not been to where they've been, if you've not been through what they've been through, if you have not been tested the way they've been tested. You don't know what could happen to you if you happen to go through that same situation. You don't know what could happen to you. You don't know what could happen to you. So, So I'm just trying to say that, I'm coming from a place of understanding, and I'm starting with my own story, so that when I'll be making the point why I believe each of those situations that I'm going to be talking about today is a blessing, so that you will know that this is not just the ranting of a preacher that doesn't understand. Okay, so it would not seem as if you are talking like that because you don't know. We've had a brush with some of these things, and God has come out for us. But it doesn't have to end that way. Both situations don't have to end the way my own ended, the way our own situation ended. It could be the opposite. It could have been the opposite. It could have been the opposite. So it could have been the opposite. So, and now I admit it. And So now going back to the message proper. So why do I think that disability is a blessing? And it's even more a blessing than for you to give birth to a healthy child. Now, this I'm going to be referring mainly to what I think is the most painful situation, when you give birth to a disabled child, all right? But this message is actually about disability in general. Either it's you that is disabled, or it's your child, or your relative, or somebody you love, or either it is you who is barren. So this disability, I'm going to be using disability in the general form. All right, disabled and disability. So I'm talking about barrenness at the same time. I'm talking about you who are disabled. I'm talking about your child who is disabled. I'm just addressing the situation, even though I'm going to be using just the primary situation or example of a child that is born disabled. That's what I'm going to be laying emphasis on. But really, it's referring, all these points will apply to all kinds of disability situation. So why do I think that to give birth to a disabled child is a blessing, and disability or barrenness is a blessing? Number one. Why does God allow disabilities such that 10% of the whole world is now struggling with one form of disability or the other? Why? That's this one question. Why is it that God is so wicked in terms or in the words of some people, that God will even allow people to be disabled, or my child to be disabled? Or why is it that God will allow this to happen to me when it has not happened to other people? Why is it that other people can have children and I cannot have children? Why is it that other people can give birth and I cannot give birth? Why is it that other people can marry and I cannot marry? Why is it that other people have healthy, wholesome children and I can't? It's not fair. And that's the kind of struggles and tests that we all have to face. And we have to, face one of all this kind of situation. So number one reason why I think that really it's not as you are thinking. And what you think is a curse could actually be a blessing. And when I just don't think it could be a blessing, but it is really a blessing, and I want to prove that to you today, is that number one, through any form of disability that you have, whether it's barrenness or disability, yours or your child's disability, God is trying to teach us, not just you, not just your family, us all together. God is trying to teach us the lesson of love. It's all about love. And even the fact that you have that disabled child, or you are in that state of disability, is also a manifestation and a demonstration of love to you. It is God's love that picked you out of the masses and picked you out of the bunch to see to it that it is you who has been trusted with that situation. It's also a matter of trust, my dear. God had decided to trust you with your disability. God had decided to trust you because He loves you so much. And also the reason why God had decided to trust you, to give you that disability or that situation, it's not just because He loves you and you want me to prove that to you, right? I know, I'm going to get there. But it is also because of love that you have got into that situation. And it is all about love. Because God loves you, because God trusts you, and because God has decided to take you through the school or through the class of love. God is taking you through the school of love. God is decided to train you in the hardcore school of practical love. And it is for love that you are struggling with, that thing you are struggling with. And that might have been the farthest thing from your heart, that everything, anything but not love. You might have been thinking, okay, now, God doesn't love me. Believe me, it's about love. Do you want me to tell you something? Let me tell you something about love. Do you know that the truth is that we all don't really know how to love? We don't know love. We don't really know what love means, really, at the end of the day. We all really do not understand love. We are so strange to love. We are so far from love. And when God decides to teach us love, when God decides to lecture us about love, He handpicks some individuals whom He could trust with that lesson of love, and so allows you to go through some situation or get to a circumstances or situation whereby you are able to understand love, or to perceive love, or to comprehend love to the level that others were not privileged to comprehend. Now, let me take the example that I'm talking about. When you give birth to a child that is disabled. Now, I'm talking in the case you accept that child. Because some people, they don't recognize the love of God. Because we think that love has to come under our own terms. That if it is love, it has to come the way I want it. If it is love, it has to come in a way that is pleasurable to me. But God could decide to love you and demonstrate love to you, not in a way that will be pleasurable as you are taught, but maybe the opposite, in a way that will be rather painful to you, to your flesh, but that is still love. So love is not always pleasure. Love could be represented in pain as well, but that doesn't change the fact that it is still love. And one of the ways that love is demonstrated in this sense of pain is when you give birth to a child that is disabled. And you accept that child, it will dawn on you one day that this is your child. That if you are not the father that runs away or a woman that gives away the child, but I'm saying when you have accepted the child, you will get to a place whereby you have no option but to love that disabled child. Normally, if you had not had that child, you would not have understood what it means to love disabled people outside. But because you are having to encounter that reality and to also know that it is your blood and your gene and your womb and your sperm and your your body, your system that gave birth to that disabled child, gradually you begin to comprehend love on another new level. It is one thing to love your child when it's brilliant, when it's whole, when it's healthy, when it's whole, when it's healthy, when it's okay. But when you begin to get to the level of love that now loves not just the healthy child, but that now loves the sick child, the disabled child, now you are talking about another level of love. And at that point, when you are able to love that child so deeply like that, your love transcends the superficial love. And you now begin to love other people. That goes in extension to other children, to other, some people, you might have the child, but you might not have accepted. But when you have accepted in love, when you have understood love, the concept of love, the depth of love, it goes beyond you and your family. You now are superior, much more superior to people like us who had never had to experience that kind of love. So it's love towards you in that sense, because God has given you an avenue, a situation, a circumstance that is now forcing you, or that is now compelling you to understand love even without you asking for it. But once you understood it, once you now know love to that level, you come higher than other men that don't understand that level of love. Same thing with a barren person. Same thing with a barren person. When you don't have a child and you accept it, if you don't accept it, then you are not accepting the lesson, and you are only killing yourself and making things hard for yourself. But when you accept it as a blessing in disguise, if you are able to accept it that you are still blessed and that is a form of love for you, you will be able to, walk in such a level of love to other people that you will not know what envy means or jealousy means. You will so much be in love. You will so much walk superior to other human beings that it will be mind-blowing. That is, if you accept that state of barrenness as a blessing, it's all because of love. That's number one. Number two reason why disability or barrenness is a blessing. Number two, we are all so selfish that we all complain, especially couples. Let's talk about families now. In every family, people fight, have disputes, have conflict, have quarrels about little things that don't really matter, really. People fight over little disagreements, like I said one time, people will even fight over the bed that is not made, or the toothpaste that was placed in the wrong place, or people will fight because of the tone tone of the language of one to the other. So we quarrel and we notice other minor problems like, oh, the salary is there, they have not grown this month, or you brought less money home like the other time, or your family people didn't do this, your parents didn't do this, or this one didn't work out. So all the things that we worry about in life, really, all the petty problems that we really think are big deal and they are problems, all of them disappear, they melt away. They just become so insignificant when you are faced with such a challenge as disability. I mean, when you have to deal with a child that is disabled on a daily basis, you will even be thinking those people who quarrel and fight over those little things, you will think they are even wicked. And you will begin to look at them as if they are ungrateful. Because you know that is not a problem whatsoever. Listen, we don't see our blessings because when they are so overwhelming, when they are so much. But when you are having problems, when you are having a problem of disabled child, or you are altogether barren, you see your blessings are the blessings that other people don't see. You begin to see that there are so much more blessings. There are so much blessings. Your blessings and the goodness of God become so much more vivid to you. They become so much more magnified and clearer that you begin to see that, wow, the blessings of God, even in little things, are so much abundant in our lives and around us that it is only the presence of greater pain and problems that can actually make you to be more, to acknowledge and to be more grateful and to be more thankful that, wow, so we were doing well. It's just like that barren woman, because she's faced with such a great challenge of not having a child, she begins to value any kind of child, even that same disabled child. Every kind of child becomes a blessing. And all the things that you are fighting about in life, all the things that you are fighting about, you have children, you have this, you have that, you have that, she'll begin to wonder, you are not seeing your blessing. So thanks to the pain and to the deprivation of others, we could actually see that God is much more good than we thought. And so when you have a child, you begin to see that your problems are not really problems. When you have a disabled child, that is, you begin to see that your problems are not really problems. Even when you have that child, you in your life and in your daily life, you begin to notice less other problems that are also there that other people are complaining about in the country or in the society or even in the church. You don't see all other problems everybody's talking about anymore. You don't see small problems anymore. Why? Because you have a bigger problem in your hand, and that is a demonstration of love as well. That is God's mercy for you. That is not making you to be bogged down or boggled down by all the small problems. You stop seeing the small problems because you are having a much more serious situation in your hand. You don't see small problems anymore because of the situation you have, and which is also a blessing. Which is a blessing. Other people are much more sad, are much more boggled down because of the small things that you no longer notice, and they are crying about it, and you can count your blessing. Number three blessing of having disability or barrenness. So many people, even those who are barren and those who have disabled children, do you know that so many people, including adults and family people, we look down orphans. We look down on children, homeless children. We look down on children that are being given out for adoption. We look down on these children that are given birth by prostitutes, or that were rejected, or that are in children homes, or that are in orphanages, or that are being given out. Not so many people, even Christians, are ready to adopt a child. We look at those children and say, I don't know the blood or the gene of the father, I don't know the gene, or who knows the gene or the blood of the mother, or who knows what problem they had, who knows what generational curses they have. They have too many problems. Even people, I even know people who themselves are barren, who themselves don't have children, but they will still refuse to see the glory and the blessing of God in any child. So, when God really loves you and wants to give you a new level of deliverance, when God really loves you and He wants to demonstrate that love to you, He allows you to go through a situation of barrenness or disability, so that unlike others, you will come to a place whereby you begin to know that every child, it doesn't matter if that child was given birth to by a prostitute, criminal, any child is God's child. Any child is a blessing. Because when you don't have any at all, God is trying to teach us a lesson. But more importantly, God is trying to expose to us our selfishness, our egocentrism. We are so bad. We are much more worse than we think we are. Now, do you know what? I don't like to pray for barren people. And it's not about wickedness. I don't like to pray for barren people because I see so much hypocrisy and so much deception and so much selfishness in people asking God to give them children. And what do I mean? Almost in every church, people pray for barren people. But they never hear the cry of children, thousands of children in that same city, in that same town, who are homeless, who are in orphanages, who are in foster homes, who are just scattered everywhere. They are praying. If you go to an orphanage, you will see that every child, before they go to bed, they are praying, Father, please send me a mother. No, God, please send me a father. Please send me parents. Let them take me from here. Let them remove me from here. Oh, God, please send me a father. Please send me a mother. Please send me parents. Please send me a home. Please send me a family. In every home, in every orphanage, in every children's home, people are praying. Children are praying from morning till night like that. But we don't hear the cry of the orphans. We don't hear the cry and the prayers. We are supposed to be hearing the prayers of the orphans. We are the ones who are who don't even need to allow them to pray that prayer. We are the ones who are supposed to even use our common sense to say that, why should I be asking for God to give me a child when there are already so many children out there who are praying that, oh God, send me a mother, oh God, send me a father, oh God, send me parents. While they are praying for God to send them parents, you who are already parents, ready, that God has already blessed with a couple, with a husband and wife, with a couple, with a partner, you are so selfish, you are so egocentric, we are so wicked. We are so wicked and devilish sometimes that we totally neglect the cries of those children. We totally neglect the needs of those children. I want my own child. It must be from my own child. It must be from my own gene. It must be from me. It must be from my husband and my wife. How do you know what kind of child even your union with your husband and wife will produce? Maybe that child will even be worse than what you're supposed to adopt. But we don't want to adopt because we are so wicked. You see, so disability and barrenness, they sometimes open our eyes to see that no strange children, no unblessed child, no unblessed children, no children that are not good, no bad children. All children are good because they are God's creation. And when you see your own child that is disabled, you begin to value every child out there in those homes, in those children's homes, in those orphanages who are healthy, who are whole. You begin to see them as treasure. And when you cannot have a child, you begin to dream even to having a child like that. But egocentrism is so strong in us sometimes that we only want to have our own. We are so wicked. But all those ones also, they are God's children. You know, it's God who created every child. If God does not allow any child to leave heaven to come to this earth, that's why you are barren. Because God does not allow it. If God has not given you a child, if God has given those child life, it means they are God's children. God sent them here. God said they are God's children. And you are now looking down at God's children. You are now looking down at God's creation. You are now thinking that God's creation and God's children are not deserving to you. They don't deserve to be owned by you, to be adopted by you. It's all wickedness. And sometimes God will allow this to happen for us to see our own hearts of wickedness, our own heart of stone, our own lack of love, our own selfishness and egocentrism. And that's a blessing. In that case, when God favors you and gives you the grace to be in the place of a parent with disabled child or with barrenness. Next point. You know, the next point why disability and barrenness is a blessing is that, tell you the truth, for most people, giving birth to a child is like just another excitement, another delight, pleasure. It's just to add to your joy. It's just to add to your happiness. Just another possession, another blessing, and just adding to making you feel good. It's just like you get a car that makes you feel good. You get a home that makes you feel good. So the child is like the highest of that rating. I mean, everybody is having a child. I must have a child. So it's just about you at the end of the day. Most of the time, everybody that is trying to have a child is to increase your bragging rights. It's about your bragging rights. It's about your pride. It's about your ego. It's about your own goodness. That on its own is so wicked. That on its own is so horrible. And that's why some of those children will grow up and say, why did you even give birth to me in the first place? No child will like that his parents or our parents gave birth to her just to have a bragging right. No child will be happy to hear that. No child will be glad to see that their parents gave back to them just to be able to say, oh, I'm like my mates. I also have a child. Oh, God has also given me a right or a blessing to have a child. That's my blessing. Every child would like to think of himself as somebody that was brought to this world to have his own life, to have his own blessing, to have his own opportunity to come to this life and be able to prove his own point. But when you are treating them like your own property, something that you did, it angers the children eventually. But when you are having a disabled child or you are barren, you discover that to give birth to a child, especially when the child is disabled, you will begin to discover that, wow, so having a child is actually a responsibility, it's a trust. It's not just about pleasure. It's a hard work. Most people don't realize that to have a child is a hard work. To have a child is a responsibility. That is why we just give birth immediately we get married. You know, one time I was talking in one of my programs that it is foolishness to give birth the first year you got married. That is crazy. Who does that? You should that young couples that in my church I train people that you should never consider giving birth in the first year of your marriage. Never consider doing that. Who does that? Why should you do that? Because we want to have a bragging right that my wife she's capable of giving birth. She's fertile. She's we have given birth. We are pregnant. 2 months after pregnancy, we're already pregnant. We're already this. So it's not really about our child. It's not really about our child. It's not really about getting ready first. It's not really about getting to know each other first. So it's not really about getting preparations and everything said to be able to give the best to that child. It's not really about that. So it's all about egocentrism, all about selfishness, all about ego. That's why we want to give birth immediately. We get pregnant, we get married, and it's all about us. We are so wicked, you can't believe it. We are all so bad, much more than we could imagine. And that's why God sometimes will like to slow us down. Because stop. And the blessing, when God blesses you with a child that is disabled, when God blesses you with a child that is incapacitated, that is sick or something like that, or with barrenness, is to be able to see the other side of the coin, to be able to see life in another light, to be able to see that, wow, if I had known that this child will take so much out of me, or it's so much work and labor that will go into a child, maybe I won't have even heard it in the first place, or maybe I would have got better prepared. And that is what we never really consider. We don't even get time to talk about it. We just think it's just normal. I just got pregnant, just I'm doing that. But it is when you have a child that is disabled, that's when you begin to say, wow, okay. And we should be learning from those people that a child is hard work, even if it's not disabled. And your child doesn't have to be disabled for you to understand that. Don't wait for you to have a disabled child for you to know that you need to get ready. You need to get yourself equipped. As a matter of fact, let me tell you what I've discovered. What I've discovered is that 50% of people in the world who are in marriages, who get married, that they are never supposed to marry. 50% of men are never supposed to go into the area of marriage forever. And 50% of women are never supposed even to consider marriage at all. But we are all doing it because of the pressure from the society. We are all doing it because of our own egocentrism, because we want to have sex with somebody, we want to sleep. But the consequence and the life of sometimes those are the last things we ever think about. Which means about 50% of people who are giving birth to children, they are doing more evil than good. And disability, when you have a child that is disabled, is one of the ways to stop and say, okay, so this is much more serious than I thought. Having children is not just fun. Having children is not just about pleasure. Having children is not just about you. It's about taking responsibility. And if you know that a child is a trust from God, if you know that a child is hard work, responsibility, task from heaven, then you would know that Any child, it doesn't really matter if it's disabled or whole, that it's still a task anyway. It's still a job, it's still a responsibility anyway. And you'll be faithful in that responsibility. But when you're thinking in terms of pleasure only, that's why you get angry. That's why you get disappointed. That's why you get disillusioned. You get broken when you have a disabled child. Because it is your flesh and your disability that is talking like that. It's about you, really. It's not about the child. And it's not even about God and His calling and His purpose and His trust. Unfortunately, I'm not seeing your notes. I'm not seeing your notes. Number 5 reason. How do I say this? You know, most of us never really become what do you call this word? Most of us never really begin to see. Our eyes never really get opened. Most of us, our eyes never really get open. We don't begin to see. Some of us, we are having children, but we are blinded to those children. Most of us having children are blinded through life. Because everything is good. But do you know, people who have disabled children, it is only after they've got that disabled child or when they are barren that their eyes open, that they begin to see. What do I mean? A mother or a father of a disabled child, if after some time when they have accepted that child, after some time they begin to notice that there are some other values and qualities in the child that were not immediately visible. You know, when you are having a child that cannot talk or cannot hear or cannot speak, or is having Down syndrome, or is having, some defect or the other, at first you only begin to see the negative things and the disability and the pain. But once you embrace and you begin to really love that child and look into that child, you begin to be sighted. Your eyes begin to open into some great depth of blessings. Your eyes begin to see some depth of, you begin to hear things from that child that you never knew was there. You begin to see some treasures and some blessings and some values and some little blessings that will become with time so huge and so great. Then you begin to know that the blessing of a child is not in the fact that they are walking. The blessing of a child is not in the fact that they are seeing. The blessing of a child is not because they are having eyes or they are doing what other people are doing. There are so many other blessings in the life of any child, especially the disabled ones, that you begin to notice that, and you won't have seen if you had just had regular. Because the regularity of what we are used to makes us not to notice the details of the blessings that God has impacted. So for any person who has truly accepted the state of barrenness as a blessing, God opens their ears and their eyes to begin to see every people what other normal human being don't see. And for any parents or anybody that is disabled, God, when they accept it, only at the point when they accept it, they begin to hear some lessons, some deep lessons, see some deep lessons that other human beings don't see. You go deeper. You go to the place of depth that other people don't see. It's a blessing. It's a huge blessing. Number six point. The disability of a child or of your loved ones or your barrenness or something actually is meant to bring out the nature of God in us. The disability of your loved ones or your own disability, if when it's accepted, is actually meant to not just bring out the best in you, but to make you become closer to God and to become better in character like God, to behave, to become more like God. Do you know why? Because the Bible says, even Jesus himself said that there is no better love than when a man gives his life for another. And when you are having a disabled child, that's the only thing you do, especially when you are the mother. When you are having a disabled child, I mean, you have to give yourself to that child from morning to night and almost all your life. There is no greater love. You begin to know love thanks to disability. You begin to understand love, the heart of the Father. You begin to know God's heart. You begin to be more like God. You deny yourself more. You reduce your egocentrism more. Your selfishness reduces. And your heart comes closer to becoming like the heart of the Father. The heart of love. The heart of service. The heart of sacrifice. The heart of giving yourself. And that kind of opens your heart and your eyes to what Jesus really did for us. Because we, each one of us, we are that disabled child. We are that disabled child. We are all with our own disabilities. All of us are disabled, at least in the eyes of God. And we saw how God, who is whole, who is perfect, who is without any defect, gave his life and himself totally to us, the disabled, morally disabled, spiritually disabled. We are all disabled. And he gave his life to us. He served us and he died for us. Actually, you don't really begin to know what is love until you have to live for another person. When you have to live for a disabled person that cannot help himself, that cannot go to the toilet, that cannot go to the restroom, and you have to just do this and wash after them and look after them and serve them. That is when the nature of God begins to come up in you. And that's when you really grow up. That's how maturity comes. And that's how you ascend from the level of the earth, of the mundane things of the earth, to the level of celestial level, to the level of heavenly blessing. It's another level of blessing, another level of grace begin to be released upon you as a result. There's nothing like it. So that's another blessing of disability. Either yours personally, or barrenness, or your family. It's a blessing. God in his wisdom knows how to release us to a new place of growth, of blessing, and of maturity. It's number 7 point now. You know, the next point I want to make is that when you are, having to deal with a disabled child or barrenness or some kind of problems or challenges like that, especially with a disabled child, we know the concept of circumcision in the Old Testament. The concept of circumcision, and we in the New Testament, we also refer to that circumcision, that God will circumcise our hearts. And when God talks about circumcision like that, it's talking about purifying us, circumcise your character, circumcise your sinful nature, circumcise your behavior and things like that. Well, one of the greatest ways and one of the fastest and most effective ways for you to truly change to God's image, to gain what we call the fruits of the Spirit, and to be truly circumcised, is when you have to deal with a child that is disabled, or when you have to deal with a situation of barrenness or things like that. It changes you like no other thing, because you are going through it every day. You are living in it every day. And if you accept it, then it's easier for you to overcome sin. It's easier for you to purify yourself, because you are making yourself to love, you are making yourself to serve, you are making yourself to give. But if you are doing it out of grumbleness and out of anger and out of it will only make you worse. But when you accept what God has given you, when you are not refusing it, your character and your nature begins to change so much that the nature of God becomes your nature. Because the Bible says that anybody that is suffering in the flesh stops to sin. So your taste for sin will be reduced. Your appetite for wrongful things and for sinful things will go down. And you will be having the nature of God more and more, like you never imagined before. So it's one of the greatest things that could happen to you, because it's one of the fastest things that could bring you closer to God than any other thing. Okay, next point, number 8. Another thing is, when you are dealing with a child that is disabled, or maybe you are barren, you like it or not, you learn to walk by faith. Because there will be so many times when you don't feel like waking up in the morning. There will be so many times when you don't want to see that anymore, but you have to wake up by faith and do what you need to do. There will be so many times when you have to believe God to do a lot of things. And that is living by faith on a daily basis. In fact, some people even keep on believing God that the child will walk, or the child will hear, or the child will see, or I will get pregnant today, or I will get pregnant tomorrow. So you have to exercise your faith on continuous basis, on daily basis, when you are faced with a situation of barrenness or in disability. Because faith is the ability to see the invisible. So the thing that you have not seen yet, you are believing in your mind that, maybe I'll wake up in the morning one day, this child will walk. Or I wake up in the morning today, I will get pregnant. You keep on believing. You are pushing. You are being pushed to a place whereby you live by faith. When you don't feel like, you do a lot of things that you don't feel like doing, but you still do it anyway because of faith. So you begin to walk and trust God by faith to do a lot of the things that you wouldn't have done normally, or that people would have done. You have even survived by faith and live by faith. And you should not trivialize that faith. You should now use that faith, turn it around, and don't just keep it in your own family. Don't just keep it for your own child. Turn around and use that faith to be a blessing to the rest of the world. Just like TY is doing with her video, and by the way, Elizabeth Ali also is doing something similar. Elizabeth Ali is doing a video. Turn every one of your pain to your treasure. Turn every one of your pain to your blessing. Elizabeth Ali, she's just brilliant. I mean, I'm so happy with what is happening right now on our platform. Before, you people were only listening to the testimonies from Ukraine and the stories from here. And I'm sure at first you were thinking, where are these people coming from? Are they coming from another world? Or that, will you ever get there? You see, 6 months. You're just listening to Pastor Sunday for 6 months. And you're already seeing so much results. I also want to thank my friend, Shinwe. I saw a video last night. And she has also done a video inviting people to this platform. I've not seen all the videos, but I've seen for Shinwe. And brilliant, like I told her, your beautiful self. She's always having what somebody calls, is it swagger? I think she's Princess Swagger. We were very well done, I think, and I think it's almost time for all of us need to. Some of you would maybe you are good with video. You'll be able to do video of your own experiences, of your own past, of your own anything that Satan has tried to use to suppress you, anything that Satan has tried to use to oppress you, to suppress you, to punish you, to torture you, that Satan had meant for evil regarding you. It's about time to begin to turn them for good. I mean, if you're having a child that is disabled or young, why don't you begin to do a presentation or a class, a club, a teaching, a training, a life coaching programs, a seminar, trainings, or even writing books, or, master classes. Why? A lot, turn these things on the devil. Turn these things on the devil. And begin to use all the lessons that God is teaching you. Begin to use it to bless your world. You must begin to, see all these things as blessings. And don't just keep them to yourself. Don't just keep, every one of your experiences, they are a blessing. Don't keep them to yourself. Begin to share them with the world. Number 9, I suppose. I think it's number 9 now. One of the greatest blessings of challenges like the disability and barrenness is the fact that when you are struggling with barrenness, with disability of a child or a family member, you are made and you are forced to work more than you would normally work. Because you have to do everything for the other person. You have to do everything for the child. So you cannot afford to be lazy. You cannot afford to be indolent. You cannot afford to just lie down and just do nothing. You are forced to push yourself and keep on pushing yourself. So laziness is overcome. So laziness is one of the things one of the blessings that God gives you when you have to deal with disability. The ability to overcome laziness, the ability to work hard, the ability to sacrifice, work hard, and the ability to just overcome laziness. Because of what you need to do, you cannot just sit down, indolent. The ability to overcome indolence and idleness and laziness is another blessing that disability gives, or barrenness, because that you don't have a child, you don't have children that will take care of you. So you have to work for your future. You have to work extra hard so that you'll be able to have resources to be able to take care of yourself, to be able to have some help, and to be able to take care of your future. Number 10 blessing. Number 10 blessing is when you are having to deal with the situation of disability. By the way, even though I'm not seeing your comments, but I would like you to keep on writing your comments because I will read them later. They are not appearing now, but once the program is finished, they will all appear anyway. So I would like you to keep on writing your comments. Please go ahead and write your comments. When you are having to deal with a situation when you have a disabled person in your home or in your house, and things like that, a challenge like this or any other challenge, and you don't have help and you have limited help, and another thing that thing teaches you, or where it really changes you, is that it helps you to be more organized. Because this child has to eat at this particular time, or this child has to walk at this particular, I have to clean him, or I have to walk after him, I have to take him there, I have to take him there. You are forced to be organized. You are forced to be more organized, to plan your life, to plan, your events, and you put your life in order. You have more order. You have more order in your mind. You have more order in your brain. You have more planning. You have more. You hold yourself in your hands. That's what I'm about to say. You hold yourself in your hands. You cannot afford to just let yourself go or lose yourself. You have to hold yourself in your hand. You cannot afford to just keep on crying. I mean, when your child has been sick for the last 15, 20 years, you cannot keep on just crying anymore. You have to hold yourself in your hand and do what you need to do. Instead of you waiting for somebody to tell you. Nobody will have to tell you what to do, because you need to clean the child or you need to clean the baby. If you don't clean, the place is messed up. You cannot just be laid back anymore. You are more organized, you are more planned, you are more self-organized, self-disciplined, more responsible, in the sense of that you have to, nobody have to tell you what you need to do. You need to do what you need to do. And that is the attitude of a winner. And that leads me to the next point that I'm about to make, point number 11. When you are really struggling with disability, real disability, and it's been going on for years, you stop pitying yourself. You stop the self-pity party. A lot of people like the pity party, especially the barren people. But when you see having the pity party, it's because you have not accepted it. Some things we don't want to accept as God's blessing. But when you accept this as God's blessing, the pity party will stop. And you will rather become a blessing to other people. If I were the one in the place of a barren woman, or if my wife had been barren or something, I will tell them to start a video. Immediately, start a video. If you cannot have a child, or you are barren or something, start producing a video or articles or trainings. Start a class, because there are not too many classes that are teaching other barren women how to cope with it, how to cope with the financial pressure, how to cope with psychological pressure, how to cope with emotional pressure, how to cope with societal pressure, how to cope, all kind of things that you have gone through, all kind of things that you have encountered. These are the kind of things that will help you to be able to address other people. It will become a platform, and it will just go a while, like TY's testimonies are going, or Elizabeth Ali's testimonies are going. That's what will happen to you if you begin to, because so many people are not hearing these things, and the only thing that they tell barren people is that you shall not be barren. It is a curse, or God will pray. A prophet will pray for you, a man of God will pray for you, somebody will pray for you, the barrenness will go, this will happen. Let's approach it differently. Let's begin to help them now. Even if God is going to answer their prayers later on, or they are going to be having children later on, before that happens, they've got to survive now. And I've not seen too many people addressing it this way and really mentoring them and really taking them on and really helping people through on a daily basis like this. And there is a need for it. And that could become your money. Like I said, wherever there is problem, there is money. And it's not for money's sake, but at least to be able to minister to people and to be able to, help somebody and give life to someone. And the next point, which is my last point for today, is point number 12. You know, when you are barren or when you are a parent of a disabled child, you know, there are so much other blessings there that I could mention, but I'll just mention this last one. Really, that disability or that barrenness could be the greatest blessing that has happened to you. You know how? Because God might be protecting that child from wrong influences. That if not for that disability, he might end up getting the wrong hands or getting on in the wrong clubs or in the wrong society, because bad companies will corrupt good manners sooner or later. Or even if you are barren, that might have been the greatest thing that has happened to you, because maybe if you had given to that child, it would have done so much evil that, you know, there are some children that end up killing their parents, not physically but emotionally. And so some parents actually die because of the problems they encounter as a result of a child. You know, you don't know, you know, what good is hidden behind your barrenness. You don't know what good is hidden behind your sick child. You don't know how much good, how much goodness of God, how much love of God, and how much expression of God's love and care that is involved why you don't have that child, or why your child is disabled. But as the case may be, if you will learn to thank God, if you will learn to rejoice, if you will learn to just thank God for everything, that's why the Bible says, in all things give thanks. And that's why the Bible says that we should, you know, accept that which is good. That, you know, we should think on that which is good. Think on these things as positive. God knows better. God knows better. It's your Lord. You are not the Lord. It's your master. He's the one in charge. Why should you blame God? Why don't you just rejoice and be thankful? Why don't you just trust him? Why don't you just believe him and trust him that he knows what he's doing? He's in control and everything is good. Unfortunately, because I cannot see your comments, I just like to say that's my last point. But tomorrow I will be talking about the blessings of pain as well. The blessings of pain. And that pain is not really as bad as we're thinking. And, you know, I really hope that those of you who have listened to this message today will go ahead and turn it to a massive blessing for yourself and for others. Thank you for your time. I will see you tonight with another testimony from our church here, and tomorrow morning with this teaching on pain, and then in the evening with another testimony again. And today also at 8 p.m. our time, that is 7 p.m. European time and 6 p.m. British time, we have, and Nigerian time, we have our Ask Pastor Sunday program. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and call in to Ask program, and I'll be able to answer your questions. And that is 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. in the U.S. So see you tonight. And then after that, immediately after that, we'll have the evening program at 7 o'clock British time, 7 o'clock Nigerian time, 8 o'clock European time, and 2 p.m. American time. Okay, have a wonderful evening. Have a wonderful day, really. Have a wonderful day. God bless. See you tonight.